Appreciate everybody being here with us today, and anybody that's watching live or that might be watching this recording later on. I appreciate your attention. So I'm David Green. I'm the Deputy Chief with Colleton County Fire Rescue and the county's emergency manager. We have a whole bunch of people here today to talk about business preparedness. And this is the first in Colleton County, and it's really important to be able to get the information out to the businesses because, as many of our speakers will be talking about, disasters have a tremendous impact on businesses, and that, of course, affects jobs and our citizens. So appreciate everybody being here. We've got some refreshments out front. We have materials here that you can collect after we're done to help prepare your business. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the agenda. And we have the Chamber of Commerce here. We were going to talk about hurricane zone changes, which is new this year. The chief's going to be talking about that. We'll talk about the Local Emergency Planning Committee, the LEPC as it's called, disaster recovery and IT assets, security and reentry considerations for businesses, insurance claims after disaster, business preparedness and recovery, and we'll talk about energy and infrastructure recovery and the personal preparedness for everybody in the county. So our first speaker today is going to be Mr. Stuart McAdoo. He is the president of the Colleton County Chamber of Commerce. I want to offer him a special thanks for coordinating with us ahead of this. And we actually put this together, started maybe a month ago. So in a pretty short period of time, we got everything together. I appreciate all your help with it. Mr. McAdoo.
Thank you. First and foremost, everybody coming in today. Thank you, David, for bringing me on board with this. Exciting to partner with a couple of our guest speakers that are going to be coming up today. Do feel honored and proud to be working alongside such talented and committed individuals to our community. As he said, I am the president of the Colleton County Chamber of Commerce. We're going to talk a little bit about business preparedness and just kind of give you an idea of what to focus on and how to prepare your business for upcoming disasters. Nobody wants to have a disaster happen to their place of employment or for their organization, but it's good to be prepared because of that what if factor, right? So let me see. All right, so we're going to talk about business preparedness here, and let's get started. Just a couple quick stats. This year is supposed to be a little bit more active in terms of hurricanes. We do have a hotter year on record for this year, and the Colorado State University predicts that we will have about 23 named storms this year, with 11 of those storms becoming hurricanes and 5 of those storms becoming major hurricanes. And we live in South Carolina. We're pretty close to the coast. We all know that hurricanes are a reality in our community. It happens every couple of years, and this year it is supposed to be a little bit more of a busy area in the Gulf and on the Atlantic coast here. So very relevant to think about hurricane preparedness for our community. And like I said, just a little bit bigger of a little bit more active from a hurricane perspective. One of the things that we'll share is the impacts of a disaster. In our communities, our biggest threats are going to be the floods. It's going to be the hurricanes. But for other communities, you have fires, you have earthquakes. And one of the things that FEMA did is they did a poll that states that 40% of businesses, after they're affected by a hurricane, do not reopen. And then within that first year, another 25% of businesses are likely not to reopen if they are not properly planned for. Within 2 years after the disaster, about 90% of businesses who have not properly planned for a disaster such as a hurricane are unlikely to reopen their doors, right? So the whole focus of today's presentation is to kind of touch base on what can we do to prepare from an organization perspective. Right, so we are not part of these statistics of the 40, 25, and 90. So going through, we'll talk about business continuity. Business continuity is that term where if a disaster hits and we have to shut our operations temporarily, how do we continue business so that way we are not either running our business into the ground or not able to open our doors for the long term. So business continuity, we look at focusing on minimizing those interruptions. Right? When a hurricane hits or flood hits or some impact to our organization, how do we reduce the amount of time from a continuity perspective, get us back up and running into operations? Resilience is how quickly we can bounce back, right? Something impacts us. How resilient is our organization, our processes to get us back up and running in the event of a disaster? And then last but not least, recovery. Once you do your continuity and your resilience, recovery is those short and long-term goals, right, after that disaster hits. So with these, during business continuity, you want to focus on a couple key things in your organization. You want to identify those critical functions and processes. It's easy to think about these things up in your head, but really putting them down on paper will give you an insight into your organization to state, we know how, say, the HR department runs or the finance department runs from their processes. These are the critical things, the bare minimum we need to focus on to make sure this department runs within our organization. It'll identify those critical assets to people, right, that make up our organization, right? If we have the finance department, the CFO is going to be a critical asset from a people perspective, right? The things, the systems, the equipment, the technologies that need to make that function a reality. And then last but not least, the information, the data that goes along with that, right? Those are the critical assets of an organization for business continuity. And last but not least, we want to be able to focus on how do we have uninterrupted communication, right? Do you have contact information for all your employees, cell phones, maybe email records, smoke signals, whatever the case may be? Can you communicate with each other effectively in the event of a disaster? One of those things that we'll be able to do to help identify business continuity and making sure it's really relevant for our business is to perform what's called a business impact analysis. You'll see that there's a little bit of a redundancy when it comes to business continuity in a BIA, which is your business impact analysis. You perform this impact analysis first. It really identifies what those critical assets are, what those roles in your organization that are really critical to your organization that needs to be able to keep functioning in the event of a disaster, right? So when you do a business impact analysis, you want to identify those key components of your business. When you do that, you can really identify and narrow down in how much it's going to cost in the event that a hurricane does hit, right? You can figure out what the impact to your organization is, what's your downtime going to be, what does that cost you per hour, right? If you have people who are on payroll and they're not able to do anything because you don't have your functions up and running, you're still going to be paying those individuals, right? And that's going to have a cost. So it's really going to help you be able to predict what some of those costs are. You can focus on high impact recovery efforts. Obviously, in some organizations, such as contractors from a construction point of view, their bread and butter is going out and building, right? You have carpenters, you have plumbers, things of that nature. We know what the bread and butter of their businesses are. We know what we know how they need to remain and function in the event of a disaster. But what this really tells you is when something hits and you don't have the money coming in and you still need to be focusing on, you still need to be able to focus and make sure those the business itself is running. If you're in a construction organization, you still have HR and your organization, you still have finance, you still have operations, right? The people going out and actually building or doing plumbing work or electrical work, they may not be able to be working at that time, but the other entities in your organization need to function, and you need to be able to focus your recovery efforts after a disaster hits on getting you back up and running and focus on those high impacts. And then what this really does is it really puts a spotlight in your organization on what the bare minimum to keep your business running and afloat during a disaster, right? It really helps focus on where you need to put your efforts and energy into. So we talked about some company assets. Again, company assets, people, staff. Every organization is made up of individuals. Those are going to be strong assets of your organization. You want to look at it from a hierarchical point of view. Who are your managers, supervisors, leaders? Do you have their contact information? Obviously, your facilities and your locations. If you have a place of business, that's going to be an asset of yours. If something happens to that business, do you have another way to function? Do you have another business or location or a facility you can go to? With company assets, we live in the digital age, right? We used to say oil was gold back in the day. This day and age, it's data. And a lot of businesses, if they lose access to their data, are crippled. That's a very large company asset. Systems and equipment, the tools and technology that you need to make your business run. And then last but not least, your insurers, right? You have policies in place to help protect you in the event of a disaster that you can get back up and running in the event that any of these things are damaged, right? Talk about potential impacts. Obviously, when it comes to, and speaking specifically in regards to hurricanes, but really any kind of disaster that'll hit your organization, property damage to your business, right? Do you have building insurance? Can you recover if wind or rain floods out or rots out some part of your business? Business interruptions. How long can you operate in the event that some of your core and critical functions of your organization go down, right? Do you know what that number is? Loss of customers. This doesn't necessarily mean loss of life. If we have a disaster that hits a community and your core business is brought in revenue-wise from the members of the community, they might tighten their purse strings because they're affected by the same things that you are from an organization perspective. And then last but not least, financial loss, right? It is very hard to recover from a financial loss point of view, and all of these are impacts that can happen and do happen in the event of a disaster. So we want to focus on creating what your plan is going to be. As I stated earlier, a lot of people have that information and knowledge up here on their head. It's really good to put that down on paper. Once you have it down on paper, you might have 75% up here. Putting it down on paper can really enlighten and open your eyes onto the other parts that you might be missing. And creating your plan will help that. That business impact analysis I spoke about a little bit earlier will go into what that plan is going to be. It'll define what your mission critical functions are. I always use finance as an example. Payroll, you still have to pay people if they're salaried employees, whether or not you're bringing revenue in, right? And that's a critical function. If that gets impacted, people can't get paid. You got delegate succession or authority. If somebody is down, right? Your CEO is down, who's your point of contact, right? Finance person is down, CFO. Do they have somebody who is second in command who can answer some of those high level decisions in your organization directly related to their department? Again, you want to calculate your costs, right? If you're down for a week, you can't bring in any revenue. Do you know what that number is? What's that impact to your business, right? How much are you going to have to spend to continue maintaining status quo, right? There's a lot of costs that come into operating when we don't have any revenue coming in. Employee information, is it up to date? You have contact information, contact details, cell phones, email addresses. Can you communicate effectively with the people that make up your organization? You got records, information, systems, equipment, the tools, again, the technology that make up your organization. We have Jimmy Hyatt with the hospital here. If some of the equipment is damaged, can he function? Does he know what those high level systems from a health perspective are? And does he have a plan in place in the event that those things get damaged? Does he Coastal Electric is here as well? Same concept. Bucket trucks, if they're damaged in a storm, do you have a backup plan, right? Communicate is going to be one thing I always say is whenever I do this from an IT perspective from time to time, I talk about IT assets and disaster recovery. But the same concept is true, whether you're doing it from a high level for all departments. Communication is key, right? Again, if you have this information up here and you're the owner or a leader in your organization and you know what you need to do the other people in your organization know that same information, right? Do they know who they need to call in the event of a disaster coming up? Last but not least, one of the last but not least things, test your plan. Once you have it written down, go through a drill, verify it works. Verify that information is correct. Verify the amount of money you spend during a downtime outage event is accurate. Verify that you can operate while we don't have a disaster in place, right? Test that particular plan. And then last but not least, always adapt and adjust. Things change over time, right? Next year, there might be a huge improvement to a certain part of your business, and that might affect some of your plan. And having that down on paper and communicating it, testing it, and then adapting after the fact is going to be key. So I do want to share that we do have a couple resources out in the hall. I believe we do have a little sample business impact analysis worksheet, just a little dry run that you can run through with the other people in your organization to fill out, where some of the critical function in your business are. Right, and we have these available through email. We'll coordinate with David Green here as well to make sure we share some of this information out for you. The Small Business Administration also has a hurricane checklist, kind of gives you an idea of some of the things from a personal perspective as well as from a business perspective you should have ready in the event that we do have a hurricane, right? So obviously flashlights, batteries, generators for larger businesses, things of that nature. And then also on the very bottom, the SBA, Small Business Administration, does do a physical disaster loan if we are determined to be a disaster location, right? And so I want to share this portion. These are links that I can send out through email. Like I said, I'll coordinate with David Green here. If we are determined to be a disaster location, the Chamber of Commerce can be a resource for you guys to help point you in the right direction to get you to the information you need, right? So just know that if something happens, there are people in the community, there are people outside of the community that help businesses and members of our community here. Again, SBA is going to be a very valuable resource. Your insurance agents are going to be a valuable resource in the event of a disaster. And I think that's all I have there. I'll pass it over here to David Green. And actually, I'll ask, is there any questions I can answer here real quick for you guys? I'll take no news is good news. Thank you all for having me, and I'll be here for the remainder. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. McAdoo. So common theme that you're going to be hearing over and over is this planning, and our emergency operations plan in Colleton County, 250 pages long. We have not, of course, planned for every contingency that we could potentially encounter, but every decision that you make before a disaster is one decision that doesn't have to be made after a disaster. So to Mr. McAdoo's point, the more you put into this planning and testing and adjusting, that's extremely important. So thank you for all that very good information. So next we have the Fire Rescue Chief, Barry McCroy. He's going to discuss the hurricane zone changes, which are brand new for 2024. New update for us. Chief.
Thank you, David. As part of your plan, we every 10 years we review the evacuation zones, and this year we made some major changes to the zones. And previously we only had 2 zones, and we have now changed it to where we have 3 zones, and this makes things a little bit easier for us and for the citizens. All of Edisto Island and the Bennett's Point area are now in Zone A, and the pretty much everything that affects Edisto Island will affect Bennett's Point the same way. So that's why we included Bennett's Point in the A zone. But it's pretty much everything for Bennett's Point south of the Ashepoo River and all of Edisto Island, and this corresponds with Charleston County's Zone A as well. These zones are based on the population and the surge models that are, that, like I said, it's reviewed every 10 years. Zone B is now pretty much everything south of the CSX Railroad that traverses the county. So that would include Wiggins and Jacksonboro, Green Pond, Ashepoo areas, and anything that's north of the railroad tracks up to Highway 17A is in Zone C. Our staff has put zone signs up, A, B, and C signs, and as you enter a zone, you'll see these bigger signs. And then inside the zones, they have collars placed on the street posts. That helps to remind the citizens of where you're located. And as we stated, all that falls into your plan. So when there is an emergency and the governor issues an evacuation order, we want people to evacuate the areas. They need to understand where they are when they need to leave.
Thanks, sir. All right. One thing to point out there is our Zone C color does not match what the SCMD map has. SCMD's map for Zone C is orange, ours is green, so a little difference there. But you'll see the zone signs and the covers. If you're seeing a zone post cover, you are inside a zone, and if you're passing a sign, you're entering a zone. One of the two of those. So thank you for that. Next, we have Miss Donna Lamb. She is with Colleton County Economic Alliance. She's also our chairperson for the Local Emergency Planning Committee, which is the LEPC. We kind of have an acronym for everything so that the LEPC is how business and industry in this county can connect to our emergency management initiatives. So, Ms. Donna, if you would. Thank you.
I only have one.
Oh, yeah, right.
Good morning. So as David was saying, I'm chairman of the LEPC. We meet 4 times a year. the last Wednesday, I believe, in, I can't remember the months, February. Is it on there? Oh, yeah, February, May, August, and November, we meet at 11 a.m. right back over at the Emergency Preparedness Center. We discuss a lot of different things. Our biggest thing is we want to make sure that businesses and industries have knowledge of what our fire and rescue and emergency preparedness is doing. Like one thing is to make sure that businesses know that the evacuations have changed and that there are signs out there so that they can let their employees know, you know, trying to spread the word, make sure everybody's on the same page, to keep us going. On the small business part, I don't really work with that part. I do more of the larger industries and manufacturers here in the county. So some of my people would be like Gale Foods, Wayne Brothers, Price and Wells, Pioneer Boats, are the ones that I kind of work with one-on-one. You know, I try to make sure all of them have their releases to come back into the county if there's an emergency, or you know, make sure that they're up to date. Hopefully they have an emergency preparedness plan in place. I don't know if they've tested it, but, you know, I do tell them to try to do that. Also, what I do is I am in contact anytime during an emergency with April, who you'll meet in just a second, with Commerce. We're in constant contact, talking, making sure that none of our industries or manufacturers need anything specific. Since I've been in this position, thank goodness we haven't had but one flooding, I think it was, heavy rains. So we've been lucky so far. But for example, if we have a hurricane and Gale Foods is down in there, freezers are all shut down. You know, one thing is they might say, we need to get our power back on as soon as we can. So I might reach out to Coastal and say, can you give me an idea? What do we need to do? How long is it going to be for their power can be back on? These freezers are down, you know, or whatever. Or it may be they have backup as natural gas. You know, I'm going to be in touch with Dominion, finding out, you know, how long or what do we need to do. Plus, I'm going to be talking to April, because April's going to be the one that's got all the connections to the governor to say, hey, these people in this county need their folks back to work, clear the roads, or whatever it may be. So she's my contact during that. And of course, David and Barry, we all work together on there. One thing on our meetings, we have different speakers come in to educate us on things that they may do during an emergency or afterwards. And Stuart was talking about the business development. And at our last meeting, we had Mr. John Gathers. He's the South Carolina State Regional Director with the South Carolina Business Development Centers. He kind of came in and told us what they would do, what they look at, small business loans for people who are affected, you know, all that kind of, you know, kind of went through what all they did. We had South Carolina Highway Patrol come in, talked about the evacuation zones, the things that they look at whenever they're getting ready to put an evacuation out, you know, and how they station themselves and figure out, you know, where they need to be. So it's a lot of good information. Everybody's welcome to come. We would like to have a room full of people to get feedback, and so that you can go back and tell whoever you may be in contact with. They don't last but right at an hour. They're not real long, but they're really good. So, you know, if you're interested, the email is right down on the bottom of the screen. We'll be glad to make sure you get a Google invite, update you on there. You can also, we do live stream them also. But that's kind of my part in it, trying to help everybody get back to work so they can take home that paycheck. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Yeah, so the LEPC, it is a federal mandate that communities have those, and they originated from hazardous materials threats to communities. But ours, when we reorganized in 2018, was it was apparent that everybody wanted it to be more all hazards, which is why we talk about things other than just hazardous materials capabilities in the county. We talk about The sheriff's office had a presenter once on active shooter threats, security considerations. We've had the hospital present on health and medical capabilities. We've had business planning people in there. We do a lot of things, not just hazardous materials. And again, it's a very light lift. It's not a heavy lift. It's 4 hours a year. And it is offered virtually as well if you can't attend in person. So please email and sign up if you are interested in joining the committee there. So next we have Ms. Angela McAdoo with EIS Consulting, and she's going to be discussing disaster recovery and IT assets. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Hi, I'm Angela. I'm here to talk about IT disaster planning. First thing that I want to, kind of touch point on is that there's different disasters. They come in different forms. The one I think we're focusing on today is hurricanes, but you should also think about fires. You should think about floods, and you should think about cybersecurity events as well. I'm, again, Angela McAdoo. I'm CISSP and security engineer for EIS Consulting Group. So I work all the time with businesses doing security reviews and assessments for their organizations. So first things first, what is the importance of planning? So all organizations need to develop and maintain a disaster recovery plan in the event of a disaster that mandates the following. You want to think about if your building burns down or is otherwise incapacitated, what is your plan for opening a new location? You want to talk about how are you going to communicate this to your staff? How are your clients going to know that you're either moving to a new location or you have a new phone number that they need to reach you at? There's 4 basic steps to a disaster recovery plan from an IT point of view. You're going to want to classify all of your applications that you have in the organization from most important down to least important. And you want to work with all of your department heads to determine what these are. So, for example, payroll, again, very important. Staff are still going to want to be paid even if there's a disaster. And then backup and recovery. So you need to start thinking about how are you backing up all of your important applications? What is the plan to recover from them? There's different methods of backup. And you could have full backups, you could have differential backups. You should be working with your IT department to make sure that you have the most relevant one. And then staff training. How are you training your staff on what the disaster plan is, who's the key contacts, who's going to be in charge at the various departments, and who's your backup plan? And then obviously validate and test the plan. So you should meet probably yearly to make sure that you run through a dry run of your plan before a disaster occurs. So from an IT perspective, one of the things we ask you to look at is how are you protecting your physical assets? You've got computers, servers, firewalls, networking equipment. What are those items? Do you have them documented down? Do you have a list of all of the equipment that's in your organization? And then before a hurricane, you should always walk around and record those. Get your video camera out, record monitors, record servers, record computers, phones, all of it. It makes insurance claims easier. And then protecting your electronic files. So how are your staff going to access files if they're working remotely? These days, most of our organizations are in Google Cloud or Microsoft OneDrive. So we've kind of got that down, but are you backing those files up? Because in those terms of service for a lot of the organizations where you can store these files, they state they're not liable for loss. So if they have a disaster and they lose your data, it's gone unless you have a backup plan. And then are you testing your backups? So if you've got your backups, you've got step 1, that's great. Are you making sure those backups work? You don't want to find out in the middle of a disaster that your backups are corrupted. You want to make sure that you're testing those at least quarterly, sooner or more often if you can. But there's, with new technology, there's virtually no reason not to test them. And then I came up with a little IT checklist. I don't have it today, but if you want it, you're more than welcome to ask me and I'll print it out for you. But some of the things you want to look at is make sure you're moving your IT equipment to a safe room, away from windows, away from doors. You also want to move your electronics off the ground. So if you've got computers on the floor, make sure you're picking those up, unplug them, everything, printers, anything that's high value, that's super expensive, you should unplug it. And then also unplug your Ethernet cables because those are a large part of shorts coming through. And then once you've got everything powered off, unplugged, wrap it in a plastic bag. If you're prone to roof leaks, you'll want to have those wrapped. Don't wrap anything that's plugged in though. And thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank you, Evelyn. Very good information. So next we have Captain Keith Crosby with the Colleton County Sheriff's Office to talk about security and reentry consideration. Thank you, sir.
Morning, everybody. As David said, I'm Keith Crosby. I'm the captain of a road patrol with the Sheriff's Office. And what I'm here to talk to you about is, first of all, in the event something like this happens, we're going to have some lead time that this is on the way, whether it be your personal property at home or it be your business. Try to secure everything that you can possibly secure that would be of value to a crook, because looting is a big thing. People are going to take advantage of this area is evacuated. There's nobody here. The police, fire department is out doing other things, search and rescue. Nobody's watching me. Now's the time for me to go crazy and steal everything I can get my hands on. Secure anything that you can secure. It was mentioned a while ago, please keep records of the makes, models, serial numbers, things that will help you find and get your property back to you at another time. But remember, at this time, our first priority is search and rescue. Protection of property is secondary. Whenever we have a large storm, whether it be an ice storm or a hurricane or anything come through, all the trees down, debris in the road. It's hard to get from point A to point B. We have 1,100 square miles of county. We have businesses all over the county. It's going to be really hard to get to you. And places like Edisto and Venice Point, obviously it's going to be very restricted access. But if you are, let's say, a homeowner or a business owner on Edisto Beach, there's some things that you're going to need to have with you as far as your reentry, because everybody wants to go down there and see the damage at the beach. It just drives us insane every time we have one of these things. Yeah, everybody wants to go down there and look and see what happened. And it overloads our resources. And of course, we have checkpoints, and you can't get past a checkpoint if you cannot prove that you are a business owner there. So make sure that you have an ID with that address, or if you are a homeowner and live in another city or another state, have something with you like your electric bill, telephone bill, tax bill, something to show that you are actually a property owner. It'll be the same instance with trying to get back onto Bennett's Point. Help us to help you. Again, remember, our job first is to protect life and property. We'll worry about that later. We will have manned checkpoints throughout the evacuation routes going out and coming back in. Anybody that's been in South Carolina for a while and has made it through one of these will see that traffic is long, it's slow. You'll be stuck in the same place for hours at a time. Keep that in mind when you get ready to evacuate, what you need with you for you and your family to survive for hours at a time without moving 5 feet. Food, water. What are you going to do as far as the restroom, baby needs? What will you need to take care of a baby or an elderly person? What have you got that can help you sustain that person until you can actually get out of the area? As far as your businesses, one of the things that you need to be concerned about is your records, whether it be your business records, your vendor records, your client records. Again, these things are gold for crooks. And then coming back onto your property and trying to get things cleaned up, please vet the people who come in and say, hey, I'll come in here and I'll cut down all your trees for you for $500 or whatever. Or somebody says, hey, I'll come in here and I'll do cleanup for this or for that. Try to use local reputable companies because they have all these scam artists come in and do this. They get the money up front. They go away and they're never seen again. People take advantage of bad situations. Keep that in mind. We are here for you. The Highway Patrol is going to be helping us out. The Wildlife Department, SLED, there's going to be a whole lot of law enforcement out there. But again, the protection of life comes first, property comes second. But anything that we can do for you, please let us know.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
Appreciate it. All right, next we have Miss Jennifer Ortiz with State Farm, and she's going to be talking about insurance claims after disaster. Thank you.
Good morning. So most of the time people don't know what their coverages are until the time of a claim. This is something that we strive to make sure that we get out there June 1st. Most of you may be seeing the Facebook post that we put out there. Please contact your State Farm agent. Please contact your agent, whether it is State Farm. But it's important. You pay for a policy, you should know your policy. The last time we want you to know what you have is at the time of a disaster. Because most of the time we hear, I didn't know we didn't have that. So we want to make sure that you understand your policy. Most people don't understand there's a separate deductible. Well, we have a named storm out there right now, 70% brewing. So most people don't understand that there's two different deductibles. So know your deductible. Know if you have a hurricane deductible. If it's a named storm, it is probably going to be under a hurricane deductible, not your regular all peril deductible. A lot of times people think that everything is covered underneath your homeowner's policy. It's not. Flood is not covered under a homeowner's insurance policy or business insurance policy. It's a separate policy. It's a separate entity. Most of the time, whenever there is a storm brewing, this is when our phones are ringing. I want to make a change. Well, if we're under a watch or warning, sorry, we can't do that. This is why it's important that we get out there and we encourage people to really sit down with your agents, know what you have. Because again, you don't want to know what you have when you cannot make a change. Make sure you know your contact information. In the event if there's a claim you need to file, do you know who you're going to call? Do you know how you're going to get in touch with them? This is also something that you should know. You pay for this service. Make sure you're getting this information early. Don't wait until the time comes that you need to know about this. Phone numbers, emails. You know, you need to make sure all these are updated continuously. Because a lot of times, if you do have to evacuate, you're not going to be in the location to come to our office. Good thing with us is we encourage our customers to download an app. The ones that go through the app are probably going to get through a lot quicker to claims than the ones that do not have the app. Because when you do have the app, no matter where you are, what time it is, you're putting that claim in. The next person is either going to an insurance agent's office and they're calling. So what's happening? You're going through different channels before you get where you need to be. When you file it on your app, it goes directly to claims. How do you file a claim? Most people don't know that. So that's, again, another conversation to have with your insurance agent. A lot of times people don't realize that there is a time frame. Typically, whenever there's a storm, again, in Walterboro, we're inland. So all those people that are on the coast or down in Florida when it's coming upwards are all affected before we get it. So there is going to be a time frame. So we do ask our customers to be patient. There is a time frame until you're actually going to get a claim rep to get a hold of you. But you know, some agents' offices are local. You're able to come to your agent's office, and we're able to kind of sit there and help guide you through a little bit of it. But just know your insurance agent is not a claim rep. So we are limited on what information we can give you and what we can provide to you. And this is Chelsea. She is my claim rep, my claim specialist in my office. So she's going to talk a little bit about what to do and how to mitigate. They talked about it earlier, documentation.
All right, so mitigating damage is probably going to be the most important thing to do. We tell customers all the time, if your roof is leaking, please mitigate that damage, because the more damage there is, the longer it's going to take for that claim. And then if it's not caused by the storm, you risk not getting that particular damage fixed. Photos is a huge thing. I tell customers all the time, take photos of personal property, any inventory that's in there, anything like that. If it's not documented, how do we know that it was in the home or in the business? Along with the time frame, they do go by severity cases. So if it's just a little damage, your claim is not going to be as fast moving as someone who is total loss over here. So always keep that in mind, and also give them about 24 to 48 hours to contact you. They are pushing out, even right now, over 200 claims a day. So they are really busy, and they will put more manpower on it if we are in a disaster. So, yeah.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. So next we have Miss April Wilson. She's with the South Carolina Department of Commerce. She does not live in Colleton County, but she's been here a lot. She's presented the LEPC a number of times. She's been involved in a number of events that we've had, so we appreciate her continued support over the years. Ms. Wilson, thank you.
This company. So we recently had a disaster in South Carolina where a company got hit, and that was the time that they found out they were underinsured. So please do not let that be you. Please check your insurance policies now. Also, I will say this is probably one of the best lineups I have ever seen for speakers. So I'm very excited to have all of you here in the room, and also those who are watching live stream. You know, these are just great individuals, a lot of experts, and I'm very happy to be here. As he said, my name is April Wilson. I work for the South Carolina Department of Commerce. Yes, I have been to Colleton quite a bit. I love the small towns. I love the rural areas. But I am your point of contact at the state level. My entire job is to make businesses' lives as easy as possible when it comes to disasters. If there's something that you want to try that you don't see happening, please feel free to give me a call. And I serve every business for profit in the state of South Carolina in all 46 counties. I'm the program manager for the emergency management department. But before I dive in, I've already heard several presentations that mention, for example, you know, you're going to have all these vendors that show up and say, hey, I can do this post-disaster. Hey, I can do this. We actually have a portal through our supplier outreach team. So if there is a particular service or commodity that your company needs and you want us to help you find somebody, all of the ones listed in that directory are South Carolina companies. So we can do it for the entire state. We can do it for a region. We can even do it for a county. So please feel free to reach out to me and I can direct you to that team. We have a small business team, existing industry, international trade. If you want to find a way to divert materials away from the landfill towards recycling solutions, we have a team for that. So please feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to help you with any of these resources. This is an overview of the program. I'm going to hit on mostly the emergency support function 24, but for this to show you, I'm the conduit to a bunch of resources. I know Donna touched on that earlier, and I want to show not only at the local level, but at the state level, the regional level, and at the national level. I'm a part of 2 national working groups, and one of the great assets about that is the fact that, for example, my counterpart in Mississippi, he was brand spanking new in his job. They got hit by 2 tornadoes. One of those tornadoes ran through the dead center of a town. And he immediately got on the chat group that we have, that's all of us across the country, said, hey, I need a contact for this, 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 and this. And we were across the country. We were just dropping in and helping him from across state lines. So disasters don't know state lines, and all of these resources are available to you, whether you are public or private. I work with a lot of public sector partners with these resources as well. Also, one thing I will highlight is the South Carolina Emergency Management Association. As a private sector partner, you are now able to join. It is a paid membership. You do not have to do it. it's just offering this as an opportunity because we have now gotten permission to develop a private sector caucus. So that can be a voice platform that you have at the state level as well. So emergency support function 24 is what I'm going to talk about today. That is the dedicated business and industry function during a disaster, and I am the lead for it at the state level. As Donna mentioned, I am part of the calls I brief with the counties and also the governor. So if we see patterns that we're hearing about from the private sector, whether it be industry, small business, retail, hospitality, that is a platform for us to express those concerns and those patterns in that room. I'm also on 3 national calls as well, so that can get as far reach as well. But does anybody want to take a guess? I know we've all been quiet in the room, so I'm about to break that silence. Can anybody tell me when they think our ESF 24 was founded? When it was created? Does somebody want to take a guess on what disaster led to it? Besides David, Donna, or Greg? And Casey? Huh? No. It was not Hugo. It was not Hugo. If I had a piece of chocolate, I'd give it to you. Anybody else? Yep, you were correct. Hurricane Katrina, it became apparent that the public and private sector were not communicating, and this is a problem because at least 85% of this country's critical infrastructure is private sector and privately owned. That number is kind of low in my opinion. I will say this, if you go to other states, like in Florida, we are ESF 18. If you go to the federal level, we're ESF 14, so it's a different number in every state. If you go to North Carolina, it's a Business Emergency Operations Center. So it is a little different no matter where you go. So our mission is to get businesses back up and running and get people back to work as quickly as possible. That we're doing that. We're answering phone calls. We're there for you. Again, I promise you, you can call me and ask me any question you want, and I'll do my best to track down the answer, or the team that I have will. These are the partners you actually heard from the chamber. The State Chamber of Commerce is a member of ours. Any information that I push out goes to all of these members, and it goes down the pipeline. Also, we work with all of our local economic developers and our local emergency managers. But the ones that you see highlighted in blue, those are the ones who staff the ESF 24 desk in the State Emergency Operations Center. The rest of our partners are boots on the ground, and they are experts in those areas. During Sunny Day Skies, I'm doing things like this, doing presentations, the business reentry program that you mentioned. I'll be going into that in a minute. But also participating in exercises and doing anything we can to get businesses as prepared as possible. Because in addition to the Stewart, his statistics that he mentioned, 75% of small business or businesses in general did not have a business recovery strategy prior to COVID. 75. During disasters, as I mentioned, we are in the State Emergency Operations Center. That is the email address and phone number. You are welcome to call all of your local contacts. Disasters start and end local. However, we are available to you at the state level. I have gotten a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning. Yes, I will answer the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I will help you. Just give me a minute. I might have to wake up because it might be in the 4 hours that I sleep. But we're pushing out information to our listserv. We're dealing with donations from the private sector. And facilitating those. And again, I brief on the state and national calls. National calls, not always. It just depends on how the day of the events work. So new resources that we rolled out last fall. So we've had a listserv for a while. However, we did move it to constant contact. So we now actually have quarterly newsletters that we send out with resources, both from state, local, and federal partners. And then during disasters, you can get our alerts with the latest information and also our dashboard. Our dashboard is a one-stop shop for all the latest information. You do not have to go digging for it. There is not a login, and it updates live except for the port status, but we do have somebody who can update that fairly quickly. So your power outages, your road and bridge closures, shelter locations, executive orders, all of that information in one spot, and you don't have to go digging. I do have some flyers on the table in here that does have the QR code to the dashboard and how to join the listserv. My contact information will be up at the end of the presentation. You're also welcome to email me and ask me anything, and I'll send you all the links. So also, we are the coordinating agency for the economic recovery support function. So some of this has already been alluded to with post-recovery. So one of the things we're doing is we're a part of, we are, as I said, the lead, and for the economic, we are participating in the recovery task force. I'm reaching out to Donna, I'm reaching out to Stewart to document what's going on within the communities that have been impacted, gathering that information. That information is shared with our leadership, emergency management division, and the governor's office. And that goes towards hopefully helping get us that disaster declaration so we can get that assistance, whether it be SBA physical damage or SBA idle. So their idle is economic injury. Physical damage, you usually have about a month and a half, 2 months to get that deadline information in. However, for economic injury, you do have a longer time. Typically, a disaster, forgive me because this is one of the new acronyms, Disaster Loan Outreach Center is stood up within the community as impacted. So you're able to go to that facility, have people there directly from the SBA to help you apply for those loans and walk you through that process. And also the Small Business Development Centers, which is a free consulting resource that are able to help you as well. But again, we're continuing to push out information. We actually just got a disaster declaration for SBA last week for Berkeley County, and we've had 3 this year so far for just municipalities. So that hasn't happened, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, since 2020. Anybody want to guess what the #1 question we get at the ESF 24 desk is, though? I'm going to have another question for you. Did it pop up? No. Oh, come on, to be so quiet. It's already been talked about a little bit. It is, and if it will come up, business reentry. When can I get back in? That is the #1 question we get, whether it's, hey, can I get registered? Hey, I don't have my login. Hey, I can't find my MOA. Is my MOA still good? All of those questions we do receive. So a little bit about the program. It was written into legislation in 2016. And it was lifted off of North Carolina's curfew law, but it charges the South Carolina Emergency Management Division with creating and running a system. We basically adopted it from EMD. EMD technically still owns it, but we run it day to day. And so we're there. The system is now automated. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete, and it went live 9 days before Hurricane Florence. Prior to that, it was done by paper, and the Emergency Management Division Director had to sign every page by hand. So this is now a more efficient process. Like I said, it takes 5 minutes at max, as long as you meet the minimum qualifications, and you get an MOA that's good for 3 years. Yes. So long as the minimum qualifications is you have to be registered and found in good standing with the South Carolina Secretary of State's office. If you meet that, you get the MOA. You will receive a notification 30 days prior to your MOA expiring, letting you know. However, I do have proactive companies who want to renew it before hurricane season, which can be months before your MOA expires. You are now able to do that. But I handle this program day to day, so if you ever have any questions about this program, please feel free to call me. I will say there is one exception to the rule. There always is. There are 3 categories of businesses that are not required to register with the South Carolina Secretary of State's office. They still can, they're just not required to. There's the sole proprietors, general partnerships, and federal banks. With the automated system, those 2 systems directly talk. So unfortunately, I cannot give those categories if they are not registered with the Secretary of State's office in a memorandum of agreement. However, we can add you to the listserv. And also there are 4 counties that do have, or 5, one of them is working on getting theirs online right now, that do have their own programs, but Colleton does recognize ours, and I believe just has ours, to the best of my knowledge. South Carolina is a home rule state, so please let me stress, and I believe the captain already stressed this, home rule, access and reentry, life, health, and safety is what comes first. If it's not safe to reenter, even if you have the state memorandum of agreement, please let me stress you're not going to get back in if it's not safe to do so. Thank you for listening. I know I just threw a lot of information at you very quickly. And thank you all so much again for being here and allowing me to be here. But here's my contact information. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, our final presenter today is Captain Casey Campbell. He's with the Fire Rescue Department. He's our public information officer. He's going to be talking about energy and infrastructure recovery and personal preparedness.
All right. Thank you again for coming. You know, this is a great turnout, and I'm glad to see everybody here. So we're just going to go through a couple quick things real quick. So let's talk about the energy grid. So Colleton currently has 3 power providers. That's Coastal Electric, Dominion, and Edisto Electric. Edisto Electric is the smaller group. They have just a few homes up in the upper west side of the county. But that then becomes a problem, right? Because that's a small group of people in a much larger company. So estimated power outages, as we all know, we're known for thunderstorms around here. We might have a couple hundred homes out during a thunderstorm, but if we had a major impact, we could have several thousand customers that are out. But it's not just us. You know, a hurricane is not just going to affect Colleton County. It's going to spread throughout. So we have to bring in other resources for those things. As far as infrastructure recovery goes, there's something called first push. A lot of you might not know what that is, but first push is where we go through and they clean out the roads. All they're going to do is push the trees out of the roads to the side of, just off to the shoulders. They're just making a hole, really. And then, of course, we have debris management that goes along with that. If it's a large impact, to give you an idea, Charleston County is still dealing with Hurricane Hugo debris. So if we had a large impact, we could, that's going to cause some problems. Our county engineer has some debris management sites that are set up through DEC, and we can get those pushed out in the event of an emergency. But again, that's coordinated through DOT, Colleton County Public Works, Coastal Electric, and Dominion coordination. We have a sheet that's managed by our dispatch center where if you're out riding on the roads and a tree falls, it gets reported. So then it gets categorized as life threats and we can get out there and move them. But if that tree falls on a wire, we now have to get somebody else involved because DOT, along with us, we will not mess with anything. All wires are considered live until they're not. So as far as personal preparedness, know your zone. There's a couple different things that you can do. There's a wealth of information online, whether it's hurricane.sc, SCEMD.org has a great tool for both knowing your zone and having a plan. But like Deputy Chief Green said earlier, our zone colors might be slightly different than on there. You can go to colletonfire.com/knowyourzone and you can pull up a GIS map of Colleton and it will specifically show you where you are. You have to have a plan and you need to make it personal. As he said earlier, our plan is 250 pages long, but that's just for the county. I can't plan for you. I don't know how many pets you have. I don't know if you have giraffes or dogs or cats. So you need to make that plan and don't forget to include those pets. That is very important. As Captain Crosby said earlier about water, the hurricane evacuation routes are going to be crowded. You could sit there for quite some time, and something as simple as water, that's not a case of water. You need 3 gallons of water per day per person, and that's not just for drinking. That might also be for sanitation purposes. Building a kit, again, at scemd.org, they have a build a kit tab that you can go through there to make a checklist. Again, back to power outages, you need cash or traveler's checks or something. You have to have a way to be able to purchase things. If the power grid does fail, also keep in mind that you're not going to be able to use your GPS, which if you're on a hurricane route, you should never use your GPS. There are several different ones that are out there, but again, it's congestion, right? So those things are relating congestion. Everybody knows when you're driving down the interstate and an accident happens, Waze or somebody like that will say, hey, take the next exit. We don't want to get off that hurricane route. So make sure you follow the signs. They're very well posted. If you don't know what they look like, they're little blue signs that are on the side of the road with a little hurricane. Again, don't follow your GPS. Make sure you have a way to get alerts. That's what that code red is. If you're not registered for that, that's the way that we send out very important information during emergencies, whether it's a hurricane, a missing person. It's just a great tool. It's free. And you can go to colletonfire.com and again, sign up for it that way. I think that's it for me.
Thank you, sir. Okay, before we take any questions, just wanted to ask in your tradition of asking questions of everybody. So our emergency operations plan is 250 pages long. Anybody know what the first 9 words of it is? Every disaster and emergency is a local disaster and emergency. So when we get impacted, there will be state officials, federal officials, if it's a big impact, that will enter the recovery fight. But it will take time for them to appear. It will start locally. It will end locally. That means that locally, it's very important for all of us to be prepared locally in our own homes and our own businesses. So very important to have all the planning efforts that all of our speakers have talked about today in mind and create that plan, make sure that we are prepared as we possibly can. I'll be glad to entertain any questions. I probably won't answer any of them. I'll defer to everybody that knows everything. But anybody have any questions of anything this morning? I believe, yeah, aren't you monitoring is there any questions on there?
I can ask a quick question though.
Sure.
For all the speakers and just for contact details, will you be able to send out an email to everybody that's registered? We can do the same thing. In fact, if we secure contact.
Sure. We can put it in the description under the YouTube video. It's being streamed, but it's being recorded as well. So where the recording is, we can put the contact information in there. Be good.
For that 250-page document, is that available?
It is. It's on colletonfire.com/EM for emergency management. If you go there on the left, I think maybe the second or third link down is the emergency operations plan. It gets updated every year, but it is extensive because it involves not just how we interact with ESF 24, but all the other 19 ESFs and how they all work. So it is pretty involved, but a lot of information at the end of that on impacts from different disasters and how to prepare. So personal preparedness is the last 30 or 40 pages of it and how that can help. So very good question. Anything else? Any other questions?
Well, I'll just share one final thing up here on the table as well. A lot of our presenters have shared a lot of documentation with you, so along with reviewing after today's meeting as well. So just want to share up to grab business startup here from 40 agents. I think Wilson's up here, documentation as well as and that's a lot.
Thank you. Yep.
I will say, two other resources that are free for businesses who want to develop their own business continuity plan. Institute for Business Goal Safety is a really good one, and also the small business development center has a checklist.
And if you don't know where to go to find anything, call us, 843-549-5632. That's the number to the EOC. It's forwarded to Fire Rescue Headquarters when the EOC is not activated. Or you can email that lepc@colletoncounty.org and we will get you in touch with the right person. Thank you again, everybody, for coming, and everybody that's online or watching this later. We appreciate your attention and appreciate your interest in better preparing yourselves and your businesses.